Welcome to all of you in this second of a series of sharing stories of our neighbors. Amada's father is from Mexico and her mother is from Wisconsin. She has 4 adult children and was recently named 2017 Humanitarian of the Year for Columbia Heights. Shall we give her a big hand? Congratulations, Amada.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you have the floor. You can actually come and sit here. Yeah.
Hello. Is that it? Hello, everybody. Hola. Good job. Muy bien. ¿Y tú?
Muy bien, gracias.
Ah, very nice. That's, I speak a little more Spanish than that, but not much. So, which is kind of one of the things that I would like to talk about. So a lot of people, when they meet me, they say, "Where are you from?" And so some people in the audience may experience this as well, but a lot of times people will say to me, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'll say, "Oh, I'm from Wisconsin." Because I'm from Wisconsin. But then they usually say, "No, but like, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Madison, Wisconsin?" Okay, but where are you like from? Do you guys get this? There's some people probably here that get this. And so I wanted to put on there, my father's from Mexico, my mom's from Wisconsin, and I grew up in Wisconsin. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm the oldest child of 3. I have 2 younger brothers, and my name is Amada. It's spelled A-M-A-D-A. So it looks like Amada, but it's Spanish. So the D has a TH pronunciation, a very soft D they call it. It's a Castilian pronunciation, so it's Amada. And my name means beloved. And it's a name that's a very old-fashioned name. It's like a Victorian name. If you had a daughter and you wanted to name her Sweetheart or my small love or something like that. So it's a very old Victorian type of name. Usually people use the word Amada to mean something of very great passion, like your love for your country. Like you would say, Amada, like my love of my own country, is kind of what it's usually used for. So my name means beloved, and I really like my name. But as you can imagine, most of the time when people see it, they assume that it's spelled wrong and it's in typo, and they want to say Amanda, which I totally understand. I have never met anyone else named Amada. Even in Spanish-speaking cultures, it's not a very common name. A lot of people say, "Oh, my grandma's name was Amada," or "I had a great aunt named Amada," but it's not a common name even for Spanish speakers. So a lot of times if people see my name, let's say I'm at the doctor, they'll say Amanda, even though they speak Spanish, because they just assume it's spelled wrong. So I don't get a break ever on my name at all. In fact, I have 4 children. They're all grown up, and 26 to 18, and my kids' names are Frank, Joan, Harry, and Walter. I gave them the most basic, old-fashioned names, and right now there's a lot of people a lot of children that have sort of more old-fashioned names, but when they were born, people still had kind of more of a modern names for the kids. And so everyone said, "That's terrible, you can't name your kid Harry." But then Harry Potter came out. Yes. And, he loves his name, and he's fine with it. My daughter, her name's Joan, and part of where I came up with her name was from Joan of Arc. I wanted to have a very strong female name that she could identify with, a woman who always stood for what was right and what she believed in. And my daughter, she tries to get a coffee at Starbucks. No one knows how to spell her name. What's her name? People have written her name Joan, Joan, Jone, like a phone. that no one knows how to spell Joan because it's an old-fashioned name and not a lot of people have that name. So sometimes you can't win. One of the great things about Columbia Heights, though, is that we have so many cultures here. We have so many different names, you know? You don't walk into the coffee shop and everyone there is named Mike or Janice or Kelly or Dave. You know, you have lots of different names that you get to hear and different way people spell their names. You know, I know someone named Stacy, and I bet her name is spelled different than other people you know whose names are Stacy. So it's nice that we get to have such a diversity of names and spellings that we get to hear in Columbia Heights. So I really appreciate that. What is our first question today?
How did you grow up? So
where did I grow up? And how did I grow up? So I said I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. How many people here have been to Madison? Well, almost everyone. It's a very culturally diverse small city. It's kind of a hippie town. Everyone's into the environment. Everyone has house plants. Everyone has a cat. These are pretty normal things in Madison. Growing up in Madison, my dad, I'll tell a little backstory. My grandmother had 6 children in Mexico, and they were in Nuevo Laredo, which is at the very end of 35W. You go all the way down through Texas, and you go through Laredo, Texas, you cross the Rio Grande, and that's Nuevo Laredo. That's where my family's from. She was able to find work in Madison, Wisconsin, at the university, cleaning the university buildings, and they had a work program in the 60s, having people come up and working. It was a cultural work program, but she was also coming to immigrate to the United States. And when she came up, she brought one child with her, and the rest of the children she put in an orphanage in Mexico. And she had different jobs over the time, where she would find a job being a housekeeper for a really rich family, where you lived in the house with the family. You couldn't have your kids. You couldn't have kids. So she would put her kids in an orphanage, work for a really rich family for a year, and send them money. I mean, they knew that she wasn't giving up her children. She just had to put them in the orphanage because she couldn't work otherwise. And then she would get her kids for another year, and then she'd have to go get a different job. So she came up to Madison to work at the university, to immigrate to the United States in the 60s. And she had to leave the rest of her boys at home. And she, every year, would bring one more up. So that's how she got her family up there. But Madison's very diverse. So I grew up with a lot of Mexican culture, a lot of music, and but then we moved to a small town in the middle of Wisconsin where I didn't have that anymore. And I was the only brown person in school, and the only one with a weird name. And I went to 8 different schools, so every time I moved, I had to tell everybody my name is Amada, and what that meant, and all of that. So, but that was kind of part of how I grew up, was going from a very culturally diverse area to a very small farm town where everyone was white, and it was very different. You know, my dad, we went to the grocery store, everybody was like, that person looks different because he was Mexican, and he was really dark. But at the same time, that was my experience. But I still had a lot of friends and was a Girl Scout, and loved where I grew up. We lived on a hobby farm. It was great. It was awesome. So coming here to Columbia Heights, so I moved to Columbia Heights 4 years ago, and I moved in with my boyfriend, Frost, over there. And so we just got married last year, and we live over by Cordiac Park, and I love our neighborhood. We're the neighborhood block captains, so we have our neighborhood block party a couple times a summer, and get to know the neighbors. We have a pretty diverse neighborhood, which is awesome. And coming into Columbia Heights, when I move someplace, I usually just get involved in the area right away. called, I don't know, maybe 2 months after I moved in, I called Lieutenant Nightingale and said, hey, I'd like to be a block captain. Is there one already here? Because if there is, I'll help that person plan the block party, or if there isn't, I want to sign up. And he was like, no one does this. What are you doing? But I said, yeah, we want to do this. So we started having the block parties, and we had neighbors who hadn't met each other. They lived there for 30 years, never had met their neighbors. So now we have a very tight neighborhood, and I definitely recommend, and can talk to you guys later, anyone who has questions about how to be the block captain and why you would want to do it. It's a good benefit for the whole neighborhood. It's pretty great. And then while I've been here, I got involved with a group called Heights Next. And maybe some of you have heard of it. It's kind of a grassroots activist group. And we just started getting together and planning some things and really trying to, create events that can be bridging people. It doesn't depend on what kind of job you have, what skin color you have. Let's just all get together and enjoy different ways of celebrating being in Columbia Heights and what that means. So I've become just very involved in the city here. And how does being Latino, or how does it shape my life here in Columbia Heights? That's a hard thing to say, because I can say this. Being Latino in Columbia Heights, the hard thing for me is I don't speak Spanish. When my parents grew up, when they moved here, my dad moved here in the 70s, it was about assimilating. And there's been other times in our culture of the United States where when you move here, you need to lose your old-fashioned language. I've heard people who are German say this too, or people from Sweden, like, nope, when my grandparents came, my grandma went to school and all the kids laughed at her because she spoke Swedish, and so she said, I'm never speaking Swedish again. And so I've heard that from other cultures. It's not just people from Mexico or other places, but when I was a kid, I spoke, I had Spanish in my life, and I spoke it when my family, we moved out to the country, and my dad never really thought about it. It wasn't really a big deal, but, when I go to places like Luis's Ecuadorian festival, to me, I hear all the music, and I know what that's like. I grew up going to weddings and all these things and hearing Spanish spoken and music, but I don't know how to salsa dance, but I love to try. I grew up in it, but I can't speak Spanish fluently because I didn't grow up in it. So for me, there's kind of a sadness that we have all this diversity here, but I grew up in a small, small town that was mostly white, and there really was an opportunity to have a Spanish conversation or continuity there. So for me, being here, I was talking with Doug earlier and Luis that we're trying to learn Spanish on Duolingo. It's a language app on your phone, and my husband's doing better than I am, and he's Finnish. So, but being here in Columbia Heights, I feel like there's a great opportunity to renew some Spanish speaking, that I can do that, and sometimes we go to El Tequila, and just to be around that culture. But being here, that's an opportunity I see. And that's it. Thank you.